technically did take this exam before. So this was not my first attempt in 13 days. This was after a couple tries. So I got a 74 on the test twice, which is really embarrassing, I know.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And so in today's video we're going to talk about how I passed the FAR section of the CPA exam in 13 days. So this is not clickbait, I really did pass in 13 days. There's a little bit of context, but I really passed in 13 straight days. So if you're interested or you need some tips or anything like that, just stay tuned. The first thing I need to do is give you guys some context. So
I technically did take this exam before. So this was not my first attempt in 13 days. This was after a couple tries. So I got a 74 on the test twice, which is really embarrassing, I know. Don't be like me, do everything right the first time, don't take shortcuts. So the
first tip that I have to give you guys is make sure you read all the chapters of whatever software you're using. So I use Becker. Don't skip the governmental section. The governmental section is heavily tested on the exam, so if you are not good with governmental accounting, make sure you give those chapters a thorough reading, because it's important for you to know that stuff, because when you're talking about like the difference between a 74 and a 75, a question like that could just tip you over the edge. So do not skip the chapters, do not skip any chapters, but especially don't underestimate the governmental section of the exam. It's very important. Even though it's a small area of the content, definitely do not skip it. So if you're using Becker, chapters 9 and 10 is governmental, and read everything, do everything, treat it like you would treat any other chapter. Governmental is key, like you need to know it inside and out. So the second tip I have to give you guys is do not take this section last. You need to take this section, honestly I would say take it maybe second or first, because this section is the most comprehensive section of the test. It's so hard to like comprehend everything. It's just so much information, and I think taking this last really kind of messed me up, because I had already kind of lost my endurance and my stamina and my motivation to study, and this is the section where you want to have all your energy, all your power, and you want to give your best to the section, because this is notoriously the hardest section of the test. Make sure you set a schedule. So for me, how it worked was I basically did a chapter day. So chapters 1 through 10 would be 10 chapters, 10 days. The other 2-3 days that I had were just for review. So the 11th day I did a practice test. The 12th day I reviewed my notes, and then the 13th day I don't think I did anything, probably just light review. But make sure that like you have a very airtight schedule and don't deviate from it, because if you miss a day, that's an extra day on that you have to study, and it throws you off your schedule. One thing I would also do is schedule the exam ahead of time. So when I did mine, I had scheduled my exam knowing that I had to meet my exact study schedule in order to be ready for that exam. And that's a good motivator, because the exams cost $200. So if you spent $200 on a test, I think that's going to be motivating for you to keep going. So I would say schedule the test and then plan a study schedule accordingly, because that will keep you accountable. Because once your test date starts coming up, it will kind of keep you accountable to make sure that you're hitting all the things that you're supposed to be hitting for that day. So I would do that. But an example study schedule I would give if you're working is maybe you devote 2 to 3 days a chapter, and so instead of 13 days maybe it'd be 26 or 39 days. But you can actually pass this test in a month while you're working. You just have to be dedicated, because it's a lot of material. So just, I would say, gauge yourself. If you feel like you need more time or you want to overestimate time, I would say 2 to 3 days per chapter. That will include the lectures, the multiple choice questions, and just reviewing your notes. And then maybe tack on an extra 2 to 3 days if you want to review your notes or take a practice test. So definitely create a schedule. It's major key. And if you're not working at all during this time, or if you don't have any commitments, definitely your entire day should be just for CPA study. So I would treat it like a 9 to 5. So I would probably use like 8 hours a day for each day is a chapter. And so for those 10 days, or however many days or however many chapters are in your software program, you just kind of devote a section or a unit to each day. And then once you do that, then you'll be able to kind of gauge how long it'll take you to get through everything. So if it's 10 chapters, it's 10 days. If it's 15 chapters, 15 days. And then just add like a couple days extra for review. And that basically is the bare bone minimum of my scheduling. It was very strict. Don't deviate, cut off all distractions, go ghost on social media if you have to.
But do not deviate from the schedule.
The next thing is kind of related to Becker because I don't know about any other software programs, but if you're using the Becker software, make sure you listen to the lectures. If you're an auditory learner, the lectures are a very major key because you need to hear that person talk. You need to hear the concepts being said out loud for you to digest it. I'm an auditory learner, so even though the lectures were very hard to get through and they're very time consuming, I knew I had to do a skills practice. So for skills practice, I would say do the skills practice because I think the skills practice is the perfect medium between the lectures and the MCQs. It helps reinforce all the things that you learned in lecture, but it kind of does it in like a real world application kind of way. And this only makes sense if you have the Becker software. I know this like tip is kind of like a niche tip, like maybe you're confused if you're using like another software, but I feel like Becker is pretty popular, so hopefully people that are using that will kind of know what I'm talking about. Next, MCQs, I would say do the multiple choice questions twice. Honestly, I only went through it once, but if I was going at this for the first time, I would say do all the chapters, including the multiple choice questions, and then what I would do is I would allot another extra 10 days to redo the multiple choice questions. So even though there's like thousands, I think maybe 3,000 questions in the whole software course, redo that. And it sounds like crazy, but it really helps with like reinforcing things and making all the like complex, steps that sometimes problems have more second nature and you don't have to think about it as much. Do the multiple choice questions twice if this is your first time studying. If you're a retaker like I was, you do it once. And if you have the extra time, then do it twice. Do the Sims in the beginning chapters. I think that is a big deal. You need to do the Sims in the beginning chapters because I do think this test is very conceptual. So I would just kind of focus in, like if you are gonna do Sims, I would say make sure you have your Sims down in those chapters, and really focus in on that and maybe not do Sims for all the other chapters. Stay disciplined and be consistent. So like I said before, when I passed in 13 days, I was on it. Every single day was study day. I didn't miss a day. If I needed to take breaks during my study day, I would, but I never missed a day. I was very consistent with it. I was like very much like trying to go in. And another thing is that make sure you're taking notes for each section. So I forgot to mention this, but what I did was I had a whole notebook of notes, and for each question that I got wrong for multiple choice, or if I did a sim and I got it wrong, I would write down the explanation. And writing down the explanations for everything, each module and each chapter was game changing, and going through and reviewing all of them maybe at the end of the day or at the end of a couple days was like the biggest thing, because that helped with retention, especially with a section like FAR, because there's so much to learn and it's so easy to forget a concept that's even kind of easy a couple days later if you hadn't written it down and reviewed it. So make sure you're taking notes. That's huge. You need to take notes. You need to review those notes. Ideally, you'd review like the notes you did on that chapter at the end of that day, or you would review a couple chapters after the end of a couple days, but make sure you're taking those notes. So make sure that your study space is conducive to your needs. If you're studying from home, you need to make sure that like everything's clear, put natural lighting, like do everything you need to do to make sure that you study. When I was studying prior, I was really frustrated, and my study area, while I was studying in my room, my study area wasn't conducive to my needs. I didn't have like a nice table. I had my clothes everywhere. I was trying to study on my bed. But when I finally did study, and when I finally did pass the test, I realized that my studying was because of the way I changed up my studying. Just make sure your study area and your mindset and your mental state is in a good place before you study for this test, because if you're not like in a good place mentally, your study area is not in a good place, it's gonna affect your studying. I know like this is quarantine, so like libraries are closed, but I would just say do the best you can with like studying from home and like eliminating distractions, and maybe studying in the morning or studying in the evening. Just figuring out what works best for you and knowing how you study is also going to be a big thing. So on test day, this is like a different one. On test day, you should relax, because I had taken the test prior. I was super nervous. I was freaking out, and I was trying to get through the test as fast as possible, and I wasn't just in that kind of calm mode. But when I took this test and I passed it, I realized that I was super calm. I knew that I had already went over the material and I had already done everything I needed to do to pass the test. When you're reading those complex problems, you don't want to be jittery or nervous or, you know, shaky, because you need the focus, you need the energy to like do all the problems and all the sims and stuff. And if you actually do all the work and you go through all the chapters legitimately, you do the MCQs, you even redo them, you take notes, and you don't skip any chapters, I promise you can get the 75. So relax. If you need to pray or meditate, do that, because I think that helps a lot. If you need to take deep breaths, go to the restroom, like calm yourself down, do that. I did all that before my test, and that's how I passed. And I got like over a 10-point increase when I passed. So that is the biggest thing. Relax on test day. If you did everything you're supposed to do, then you'll be fine. Don't take any chapter for granted. Look through everything, and if you do that, you'll be good. But I hope this video helped somebody. And let me know if you have any questions. I am willing to help. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe and share, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.